Welcome. I'm grateful to all of you who have contacted us with concern about the Presbytery plan for this area and the possibility of there not being a minister based in Luss in the future. Tonight, I want to tell you the facts as we know them, and also to introduce you to our two session clerks so that you can hear what they have to say. The first thing to say, and this is very important, is that there's no proposal to close down either the church at Luss or the church at Arrochar. Both are planned to continue, and I'm sure will continue for many, many years to come. The folk here will see to that. The proposal is to remove a minister from the manse at Luss, and in the future to have our congregation serviced by a minister from Alexandria in the Vale of Leven. This plan hasn't originated with our Presbytery, but results from a decision by the General Assembly of the Church of Scotland, which instructed all presbyteries to draw up a plan for their area, showing how they will cope with less ministers in the future. One of the problems facing the church at large is that we have a shortage of ministers, and that shortage is not equally spread throughout the land. But in some areas, there are hardly any ministers, way up north, for example, while other areas manage to fill most of their vacancies. So each presbytery has been given a target for the future. In our presbytery, Dumbarton, the target is to move from 34 ministers today to 26 in 10 years' time. It's not an easy task, and the committee charged with producing the draft plan has tried to keep all churches open by linking congregations together. We would agree with that as a general rule, but the solution which they've reached causes us a number of very severe problems. But let's not get ahead of ourselves. The Presbytery Committee decided that the best way and the fairest way of dealing with the problem presented to them was to consult the census figures, the population figures for the Presbytery area. This does us no favours because our area consists of Mulgai and Bearsden, Clydebank and Dumbarton, Helensburgh and the Vale of Leven, areas of high population, urban areas, very different from our own rural communities. Also, each of these areas is able to make a very special case for needing ministers. The congregations in Bearsden and Mulgai say that we are large congregations and we produce the money which the church needs to continue to stay alive. You'll need to give us the ministers we need. The congregations in Clydebank and the Vale say that we are ministering to huge numbers of people suffering from urban deprivation. The Church of Scotland will cease to be a national church if it ceases to have ministers here. All of this is true, but Arrochar and Luss have a special case to present as well. First of all, rural areas need ministers. The nearest manse to Luss, travelling north, is at Dalmally, almost an hour away. And manses are important in the countryside because that's where we work from, unlike the town church, where the minister often has an office and staff as well. My parish is already huge, and I can spend several hours a day in my car without ever leaving my parish. But that's only one of my ministries, caring for people in a vast area from the Rest and Be Thankful in the west, to north of Ardluey, to way down south at Arden, and round the top of Loch Lomond as well. My second ministry is to the thousands of visitors who come to Loch Lomond each year. Thousands? The National Park tells us that last year 750,000 people visited Luss, and very significant proportions of them come specifically to visit our ancient church and to ask the minister to conduct a special service for them. And one day 2 years ago, when we counted, 2,470 people came through the church gate. I'm asked to lead reconciliation services, remembering people who've died services, wedding blessings, recommitment services, yes, and weddings too. 143 of them last year from 37 countries throughout the world. It's easy to say, well, what would we miss by not providing this? The answer, of course, is to remember, first of all, that Loch Lomond is not somewhere which only belongs to those who live here, but is part of our national heritage. Traditionally, a place where folk from Glasgow come to relax, and a place where people all over the world regard as home. And these are no mere ceremonies. But because of our websites and the ease of email communication, we're able to develop real links with folk and prepare them for Christian marriage. It's a missionary opportunity for which many people would give their eye teeth. So we may be a small community, but with a huge mission field and with the tools to do the job. We've built a pilgrimage welcoming centre. We've developed Luss TV to keep in touch with folk from around the world. We broadcast church services and enable people to have a real sense of ownership of our little church, no matter where they live. But that's only part of it. For we have a third ministry as well, a ministry to young people. Nowadays, when the church laments the lack of contact with young people, we have people queuing up from all parts of the world to come and spend time with us. Thanks to the Royal Engineers, we have access to our huge glebe by the side of Loch Lomond. Thanks to Kinetic and to the Royal Navy, we have beautiful accommodation for these youngsters, 36 at a time. Parties from 3 different countries, one's always Scotland, come to spend 3 weeks at a time here. 2 weeks building a pilgrimage pathway in the glebe, with getting to know you parties and social interaction in the evenings, followed by a 1-week pilgrimage across Scotland, exploring our country. Lasting friendships are made, lives are changed, and those who come here keep in touch with us through Luss TV and the website. It's no exaggeration to say that by 2010, when we celebrate 1500 years of Christian presence here in Luss, we'll have created a community of young people from all around the world. A community which can become as important to our church as that other community based on Iona. And that is where our dilemma begins. To make this happen, we need a minister based in Luss. The Pilgrimage Centre and the Pilgrim's Palace, our accommodation block, are all based in the manse grounds. The feeding facilities for everyone are in the manse itself. Without the manse, the project falls apart. Now some of you may be thinking, but the plan doesn't take effect for a few years yet. Can we not just wait and see what happens? Unfortunately not. We've been given very large sums of money, £45,000 from the Church of Scotland itself, to develop a sustainable future for the ministry in Luss. And we're bringing in hundreds of thousands of pounds to create the future. If the Presbytery now decides that there is no future, then we cannot continue to raise this money and build for a future that the Presbytery does not foresee. So everything that has been built up will come to a resounding halt. So what are we trying to do about it? Of course, we're arguing our case, and we're trying to share what's happening here with others in our area. There's a lot going for us. Christian Research has just produced a book, Back from the Brink, in which they chart the story of the church at Arrochar and point to the fact that this would not have happened without ministry. The National Park and Argyll and Bute Council have both written to Presbytery stating how important the role of the minister is in these areas of the National Park and in Argyll. Others are pointing to the role which a rural minister plays with school boards, community development, caring for everyone in the community, and so on. I personally remind myself that life for me is much busier here in a small rural community, yes, and one which suffers from rural deprivation too, than it ever was in one of the busiest Glasgow churches which I served before I came here. Yes, the numbers were huge there, but so were the resources, the people to help, the buildings to use, the leadership team on which to draw. It's not like that in the country. What will happen? I'm optimistic, because what is happening here is of God. I'm constantly struck by how this is almost a prototype of church without walls thinking. Welcoming strangers is such a biblical concept, as of course is pilgrimage. What we do uses the specific skills of the community, the welcoming skills of those raised in bed and breakfast and the tourist trade. It's particularly appropriate for here, by the banks of Loch Lomond, where so many people come to seek spiritual refreshment and are open to the call of the gospel at a special moment in their lives. An adventure away from home, meeting with folk from different cultures, an engagement or a wedding, a birth or a recommitment, a bereavement or a time on their own with space to think. That folk want to turn to us in such a situation is a God-given opportunity, one which I think no presbytery would wish to fail to develop once they've thought it through and seen what's being done here on the banks of Loch Lomond.